Trevor here. So if you are as nervous as I am about all that crypto stuff, Bitcoin and all the news headlines about things melting down, early days of any kind of investing or technology can be scary. Hang in here. I'm warning you in advance. It's a 41-minute conversation between my partner, Linda Ray, and Heather. Watch it, save it, come back to it later, because what Linda Ray, my partner in everything, and Heather are going to talk about is Web3 101. And yes, I know, deep breath, namaste. Bitcoin, crypto bros, all that stuff scares the hell out of people like me. But if you want to enter into this enterprise and learn about it from people who will explain it in terms you and I can understand, you're going to thank me for watching the video. So here we go. Linda Ray and Heather, take it away.
Web3 blockchain and smart contracts is not a product or service. It is a way to get your product or service to your consumer. We just described a beautiful way with memberships where your consumer actually owns their membership. But as a small business owner, you may say, well, great, that benefits the member, but what does that do for me?
Today, we are talking with Heather from CoinQueens. And I thought for this channel, what would be fun is talking about small businesses, talking about small business technology and how underutilized this particular technology is, not to mention the stigma of what we're going to talk about today. If you don't know Heather from CoinQueens, how she got involved in Web3 was a friend of hers was mining Bitcoin. You were having conversations with people and decided, wow, if I try to scale this, I probably should do it on a bigger platform and bring in more people at once. So can you introduce yourself, say hi, and tell us everything about how you got into this?
Yeah. Hi. Well, thank you for having me and talking about my favorite thing ever, which is crypto, Web3, blockchain. I could do this all day long, and some days I do. So when I met our friend, Scott, who we are still very close with, my husband and I kind of thought it was just kind of a joke, and it was ridiculous. Like these computer systems solving algorithms and producing digital coins made no sense to me. And then as we learned more, and he made his case for Bitcoin as like a store of value, not necessarily as a currency, we were like, okay, let's play a little. So we decided to just invest a little, money just so that we could pay some attention to it. And we did. And then we had some success. So then we continued investing. And then as we had success, our close friend group was like, hey, what are y'all doing? We want to participate. We were all kind of just having this nice little fun with crypto. And then we had a broader network of as that network grew, as each person's little circle wanted to join, we realized it would probably make sense to create a fund, because crypto is not regulated. It is self-custodied, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But so it's very difficult for the average person to invest in a big way. So we thought the safest way was to be able to create a fund so we could help, mitigate those risks for our friends. So we started CoinKings, formally kicked off at the beginning of this year, and it's doing amazing. And there was one glaring thing that stood out to me, which is how CoinQueens came to be, was there was no women participating. I was the only female. And I didn't like that. I was like, and then all my girlfriends are smart. I mean, they're business owners, they're leaders, they should be involved in these investing types of decisions, these like cutting edge type things. I'm like, oh, this is where big money can be made, right? So I started introducing my friends to it through an event I called Wine, Women, and Wallets. And I brought them all in. And really, it was kind of just like to get over the hump of letting their husbands participate in the fund. And because a pretty large minimum, and I was getting a lot of calls like, hey, I wanted to go remodel my entire kitchen. And now my husband's bonus is going in your fund. What is crypto? And I was like, okay. And so once that was so successful and the women were opening their wallets and they're like, okay, let's play. And then I was recognizing the broader Web3 community was struggling in the same way to have women participate, or just to connect with not just women, but their in real life communities and business owners to connect with what they were doing. And I'm like, okay, you should do what I do. And so that's how CoinQueen started, just to try and help empower women to reach out to their in real life communities and their small business owners and their leaders at their friends' firms to start integrating these technologies and be out in the forefront, right? To be those thought leaders. I think it's a really big opportunity.
The whole mining of Bitcoin, is still a tad elusive to me, but I think it's fascinating that through that you were able to not only gain some knowledge and expertise, but also some financial rewards,
Right.
which is, when you, like you had said, to have some skin in the game. You used a fun word, play, which I would have to say, I'm wondering if people think that way when it comes to crypto. And of course, we'll get into a little bit of this past week with what happened with one of the exchanges, one of the biggest crypto downfalls or demises that have happened thus far. From what I heard, I wasn't on the exchange, but can you describe the differences between Web3, crypto, blockchain, and NFTs, and how they're intertwined, but how they're different?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Web3 as like a broader whole is just this lovely bucket that everyone uses to describe these new tools we're using on the internet. I like to call it the internet's incentive layer, because really it is allowing this like creator economy that you hear people talking about, YouTube, all these social media influencers, and even brands. It's not even just a single influencer human, but just brands using these media channels and using these micro communities to generate income. Web3's tools, these internet's new tools, really activate that incentive layer. And so Web3 is just a big catch-all for all the new things, smart contracts, NFTs, blockchain, it all dumps into there. And then a blockchain is what cryptocurrencies and NFTs are built on. So there's many blockchains. IBM even has its own private blockchain because they want their data private. They don't want it out there in the open for everyone to see. But like Bitcoin, it has its own blockchain. Ethereum has its own blockchain. So blockchain is just a big, think of it like a bank ledger, and it has all the transactions that ever take place in the history of Bitcoin. So, and every time a new transaction is mined, which is what they say, or put on the blockchain, they re-verify every transaction all the way back to the beginning of the blockchain. So that's one of the security features that's so interesting. People are like, is it really safe? Is it really secure? And it's like, yeah, it really is. Immutable is a fun word. Google it.
Immutable. Exactly. There's been so much new vernacular that has come into my purview with Web3, with NFTs and the blockchain. And it's just this whole language. Okay. So we covered Web3 and blockchain. And so we have crypto is next.
So crypto is just digital money. And so the digital money exists on a blockchain. So that's how it's recorded. So if you have a bank ledger, like if you bank at Truist now. If you bank at Truist or Chase, they have their bank ledger and they keep track of all the transactions with your US dollars, which you'll hear a lot of people in Web3 say fiat. So the blockchain is Bitcoin's digital ledger that keeps track of the digital money, which is cryptocurrency. So that's all it is. And then NFTs are smart contracts, and which those are basically a software application that lives on the blockchain. So it gets pretty confusing, but and I don't want to get too deep because I feel like when people first digest it, all this really isn't that important. All that is important to know is that the blockchain exists as a ledger, and it is a way to record transactions and verify that they're true. Crypto is the currency that allows for those transactions and the trading of value to happen between entities. And then NFTs are one version of smart contracts to execute anything. It could be ownership of art, music, video, my shirt, my Gucci belt, which, they're all those fashion brands are playing in it. So you can code into that contract ownership or anything, really, any set of rules that you want into the contract, and that those exist on the blockchain. They're executed on the blockchain.
I love how because I've heard you say this before, where let's not overcomplicate something that is new to us. Let's not get too complicated. NFT, by the way, stands for non-fungible token. And what I thought was interesting, and the best way that was described to me was if I was standing at a vending machine, because I'm Gen X and they existed, and I needed 4 quarters, but I only had $1. So that's a paper bill. And I needed 4 coins. If you gave me if I gave you the dollar bill and you gave me 4 quarters, it's still $1. The value is the same. Whereas with NFTs, non-fungible tokens, this is exactly what you're saying. The smart contract is what makes it non-fungible, which makes each token have its own value, have its own differentiation of whatever it is the holder is receiving when they buy that NFT. Is that kind of sort of accurate? Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's proof of ownership, right? Like a deed to a house or a title to a car. So like our iPhones, you wouldn't trade me iPhones, right? Because our iPhones are non-fungible. They have, specific data and things on there. Whereas an NFT works in the same way. It has your specific information and ownership information literally coded into it. So it is yours until you sell it or trade it or whatever you want.
That leads me into my next question. What about Web3 or crypto or the blockchain or NFTs is keeping people from trusting the technology? Because one thing that it seems to me in my mind, when I first heard about this, I kind of got it because I was able, and we're going to get into what's a use case, which is basically give me an example of how I would use an NFT in my small business, right? But I think, when people hear NFTs or if they hear crypto or the blockchain, they completely shut down. Conversation over, and there's a stigma, and now you might even be put in a bucket where they're like, they're unfollowing me on Twitter.
Scam.
Yeah, it's a scam. I thought this is like a new iteration or a new evolution of the internet, of the way we communicate. What do you see is happening with people and small business owners or just people in general with this technology?
I think the barriers to entry at this point are just so difficult. You can't yet use it easily with your Apple Wallet. It will get there. We're very close to there. So right now you're having your separate crypto wallet, like with MetaMask is one, right? So I think people hate to install a new application. People hate to learn something new. And even from my opinion, thinking of the broader public all having a MetaMask makes me a bit nervous because, whereas if I lose my debit card, I call the bank and they send it back. If I lose my secret recovery phrase for my crypto wallet, I do not receive my assets back. I do not have access to my wallet. So I think the barriers to entry are just still a little steep, but at the same time, I will say now the software is being developed are addressing that. So there are Stripe is integrating with these front ends of websites for like small businesses could use, and you can pay with a credit card and they would create and maintain that wallet and those seed phrases. So the general user doesn't have to have self-custody. Now, self-custody, like owning your crypto and being able to send it anywhere around the world without a bank's permission is one of the beautiful things, but for the general consumer, probably not that important. Being able to have ownership of an asset a digital asset that the small business wants to offer is probably more important. So who cares if they have custody of their wallet? They just want to be able to use it, right? It's just a little too confusing. And I think we do that to ourselves. I think we make it confusing because we talk in these like really detailed terms. One of my favorite protocols that's developing like solutions for this is called Unlock Protocol. And they have this really fun thing they do on Twitter now where they take regular internet like things and make them difficult. And they explain like Amazon with like coding terms. And it's what we're doing with Web3, right? And it's funny.
That's so fascinating.
And you're like, wait, that's what we're doing. Literally, these are just new ways to buy things, right? That's it. It's just a new way to purchase things and engage with people.
That bit right there. It's just new ways to buy things. You had mentioned about Apple, so that made me think of how it is coming, maybe slower or faster, depending on how involved one is, because even Instagram is now incorporating or integrating where you can have a digital wallet.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant use case. Instagram, I think, in my opinion, is the perfect use case for anyone who has any sort of existing fan base or consumer base that lives in a digital platform like Instagram. Should absolutely do this because right now Instagram owns all your data. They own access to all your consumers. If you get kicked off at Instagram, whatever happens, you're not a part of their algorithm, you're not friendly anymore, then you can lose access to all of your consumers, right? So being able to move those buyers still existing in Instagram, but move them to the blockchain where you own you and the consumer have a direct relationship. There is no middleman. That's like a beautiful thing to me. I think the ways to engage and incentivize that fan or consumer base is amazing. And it's, I can't remember the author of that book, but like connecting with your 1,000 true fans, and that's all you really need. This type of technology, blockchain, makes that meaningful to me, like the 1,000 true fans and how you can build from there with this, I think is brilliant.
It sounds like accessibility because of the, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, that's what they call Web2, where the platform owns all your content and your contacts. Right. So it sounds like what you're saying is with Instagram slowly integrating where, the blockchain is part of that exchange, then there's a different kind of accessibility that the creator economy and the content creator entrepreneur, as Joe Pulizzi says, you have a little bit more of a accessibility with one another.
Yeah, like I think making it easy. So I met a girl at a conference I was speaking at a few months ago, and she is a really successful artist, and she does like Instagram lives, and she will draw her fans on a live, right? And so I think, which that's just so cool. And she's super talented. And she was just interested, like, what should I be thinking about Web3? What should I do? And we were just kind of kicking it around. And I was like, what a really cool way, instead of having to, and you could still send that, live drawing to the fan that you drew and mail it and incur, all that cost. Or you could draw it, take a picture of it, mint it on the blockchain, and sell them the digital collectible. Right?
Oh, that's so cool.
And then that's an instant exchange. And you have this new relationship. And maybe you want to like send all of those, you can airdrop once you have access and you have an exchange and you have their wallet. Think of it like someone's email address. It's the same. It's just an identifier. So you have that contact point. You can send them a 20% off for all of your, prints that you're selling this month or whatever. It's just a new way to engage. And then you're giving your fan or your consumer a digital collectible they can post all over social media. And people are spending more and more time on their phones and in virtual experiences. This is a virtual experience, right?
Yes.
So, I have my logo behind me and I could, mint that, sell it to fans, and they could have them behind them too. There's all kind of interesting ways to engage. And I think the virtual identity, as that becomes more important, the digital collectible, just the NFT, which that's just vernacular, it becomes so much more useful and makes a lot more sense to a business owner.
You said something that I want to back up just in case. When you had said about that person who was on the live, she can then mint that on the blockchain. Can you just differentiate between buying an NFT and minting an NFT and how that's different and why you use that different word?
Minting, it's because that all derives because Bitcoin strives to be the gold standard, right? It wants to replace gold as a store of value. So you mint, gold mint, that whole thing, that's where minting came. So when you create or put something on a blockchain, let's say, so for instance, my NFT for CoinQueens to become a member of CoinQueens is on the Ethereum blockchain. So when I created those, a graphic designer made the logo, and then I put it to mint it means you're putting it on the blockchain. It is now recorded on Ethereum for the first time. So now my logo that was just a PNG file got put on the blockchain for the first time. And that was, minting it. And then I, sold them. And then
I'm a proud holder. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, now if you decided I kind of hate CoinQueens, I don't have any use for it anymore, but I think some women would like to be in this little tiny 30-person club, then you could list it for sale. And it's now your membership isn't wasted, right? So you bought a membership, like, hello, small business owners that have memberships. You bought a membership to this club. And then you're like, I don't want to be in this club anymore. Typically, then you just aren't in the club anymore. You don't get your money back. But now you can go, okay, what's the value of this club and this membership? I'm going to list it for sale on a secondary market. And then you get the full value of it. I mean, it's amazing. You get your membership money back.
You get your membership. So, when I was learning of all of this and trying to convert it in my mind to an example of real life. It's sort of like if you're a small business and you joined a chamber of commerce, that's a membership club. And you have to pay annually for that. And so if you stopped going, you don't get your money back.
Yep.
You just don't get any value because you stopped going, but your membership is still paid for. And maybe you stop going and then you don't renew it. So that's where the money is, where you're not really having to spend the money anymore, but you also forfeited the value midterm if you stopped going. I want to get into something that's a little more complicated especially with the news that happened last week. FTX, which by the way, I don't even know what FTX stands for. I do know what SBF stands for. Because I know you and your husband with the crypto and the fund that you created, what are you hearing or what do you know about how this is impacting this space and potential near future plans for people who might have considered being onboarded or adopting and adapting? What's going on with this and how does this affect everybody?
Okay. So we have almost 6 million assets under management. So communication to our investors was immediate and clear. For us, thankfully, let me start with what FTX is. FTX is an exchange. So it's a place to take your US dollars or whatever your currency is, you give it to FTX and they will give you back digital currency of your choice, right? So let's just use Bitcoin, for instance. So people wanted to buy Bitcoin. I gave you $1,000. You gave me the equivalent in Bitcoin. And then you can leave it on the exchange, which defies the purpose of crypto and self-custody. But then what we just talked about earlier, you don't have to worry about losing it, right? Because you're like, okay, FTX will keep my crypto safe. I don't have to worry about it. It's there. It's underneath my password. Great. Perfect. If I forget my password, I can call FTX and they'll let me in my account with some verification measures. Typically, what we do and how we manage our fund is we go on an exchange. We actually use Gemini, which there's actually news this morning that Gemini caused some, but I don't think it's Gemini. So Gemini is one for one. Like if you give them a US dollar, then they should have the value backed one for one. They have an earn program where you can stake. So Bitcoin, you can stake Bitcoin, meaning like it's like putting it in like your savings account and you get a return like a 0.5%, a year or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can stake Bitcoin on some platforms. And so I'm not specific what Gemini's or FTX's terms were, but so you would sign an agreement saying we'll hold your funds and then we'll invest them, and they probably leverage them. That's what happened to FTX is they over leveraged out the wazoo. And then they lost. Then when everyone wanted their money, which was another exchange, it was a real shady deal. I think.
Oh.
So Binance is the one. So Binance is another exchange. And the main guy of Binance tweeted out that he was going to sell all of his tokens to FTX and wanted his money back. And not in a bad, like he was saying it wasn't in a bad way, but he wanted to, get his money out. And it's a large amount of money. And of course that caused panic. So then everyone it's like making a run on the bank, right? So everyone made a run, wanted to get their money. Turns out there was no money because that's a whole other hour conversation, but they mismanaged the funds and they over leveraged. And so now all those people who left their crypto on that exchange can't get it. So the proper thing to do, their crypto is gone. It's totally gone. They filed for bankruptcy. They lost it. They have no money to pay anybody. The correct thing to do, and I think this is, again, when we talk about why are more people not participating yet, it's not regulated. We need like FDIC. We need all that stuff, right? And we're not there yet. So it's still a risky investment and it's still in the adoption phase, right? So it's still growing and changing. I love it as an investment, but not as it still should be looked at as a risky investment.
Right. Even with stuff that's regulated, there's still volatility with ways to invest, even with the traditional ways of financing and investing.
Absolutely. And we don't keep any money on an exchange. So it doesn't affect me because we buy it and then we take it right off and we put it in cold storage. So,
okay. Because I was in a space and there was some guy who sounded important based on his profile. And he basically said, do not have any money in Gemini or on Gemini or with Gemini or whatever. I don't remember exactly what he said because I had never heard of Gemini.
You shouldn't keep any money on exchange. And then also if FTX and Gemini are over leveraged in such a way, and we're all kind of probably dirty trading in the back door, doing all these fun like balance sheet things, then they're all doing it. There's going to be no hero in this. There is no hero in this.
Right.
This is all greed. It's not, I mean, there's greed that plays out in our regulated financial system. What do you think is happening here? And a global currency with no regulation.
And also because there's a lot of, I don't want to say anything against the younger folks, but there are, more younger people who are more progressive and that's part of the whole thing with the FTX that's coming out. There's like 10 people and they're all in their 20s and they were handling $1 billion or more dollars. It's like complete insanity. I mean, the human brain isn't even fully developed by science standards till age 25. And these people are like handling billions of dollars. It's chaos. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But, I want to get back to not something that sounds so scary or makes
fair.
so untouchable. But share with us what your most inspiring moment has been with onboarding women in particular into Web3, because that was your main mission. Of course, you're not going to turn away if there's a male species in in front of you that wants to talk about crypto or NFTs or Web3, but you really wanted to start it out about bringing women into the space. So tell me about that.
Yeah. And that is still my goal. I mean, it's my number one focus because I think this still is such an opportunity. It is still being built. All the applications, all the software, everything is still like being created right now. So why not put women it's the same tools that they're building in their companies now and the same problems they're solving in their current industry. They're still going to need to solve them. And maybe they can solve them better with the technology like blockchain and smart contracts. Maybe they can do it better. So I want them to be the ones to do it, right? Like, let's not leave this to the boys. But most inspiring, I would say the first time when I held my first Wine Women in Wallets, and I expected just a few women to show up because tech and finance is not a typical topic. Most women want to hurry to a happy hour to hang out and chat about. And we had 22 women show up, and that alone, just them showing up, like, this is amazing.
I love all of you.
And so we went through the whole presentation, like kind of like what we just talked about, right? A little bit more, but not much, because trying to keep it, digestible.
Yeah.
And meaningful. And by the end of it, they were like, okay, yeah, my husband can participate in the fund. That's great. But what am I doing? I want to play with you. I want to like open a wallet. So everyone's opening a wallet, which is really what my intention is my goal is to just get women to open a wallet. I'm not saying open a wallet and put $10,000 in it and go buy a bunch of random stuff. I want you to put $100 in it.
That's
and then
right.
You're going to pay attention to it. Do you know what I mean? Then you're going to watch the charts. You're going to go, oh, look at Bitcoin. Oh, look at Ethereum. Oh, look at that NFT I thought I would have bought. Because that's what I did. I pretend invested. We were into Bitcoin. We were into crypto, and NFTs were so new. And I was like, I don't know how to trade these. I don't know how to invest in these. I've never done that. And most people don't. So how are you going to learn? You can read and watch all the things you want. But I think the most meaningful way, open a wallet, put $50 in, and then pretend trade. Go, I'm going to buy that, and then watch it over the next week or two, and then regret it like I did when I was like, I knew I should have really bought it. We've discussed, the 1989 sisters, like,
oh yes,
love. She was that was the last pretend mint I did. That was like, okay, I'm ready to go.
So interesting, yeah, because she was early days. Like, was it like summer or fall of 2021?
It was summer. I was in the airport at baggage claim, and I was like, wait, maybe I'm really going to mint this one. She had like a buy 3 or buy 5. And I was like, and they were like $200. And I was like, oh, should I just buy 5 and just go for it? And he's like, do it. And I'm like, you know what? This seems like this is not the time. I've spent all this time waiting to buy my first one. I've always actually admired her fashion illustrations are beautiful. And that's just my style. I love it. He's like, do it. And I'm like, no, this is like harried. We're at baggage claim waiting for bags. Like, I'm not doing it now. And then of course, like, that next week they were valued at like $15,000. And I was like, okay, you're ready to jump in.
Well, if that isn't a real life application, because you're right, you watch videos and listen to podcasts and read all of it, but it doesn't mean anything unless you're actually, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the article that I did because it was touching on everything no one talked about when I first came in. And I came in March 2022. There were people already, for a year, and the real OGs, were back 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. All right, so that's awesome. My next question is along the same lines, which is how can small businesses embrace Web3 for their products and services? And we kind of touched on a little bit here and there with all of that. You gave examples of membership and buying stuff. I mean, what are some of prime examples you're seeing now, especially with all the women? I saw a tweet where you said, I've onboarded about 400 women. I am imagining a big chunk of those are potentially small business owners, and they're trying to convert their business into how they could make this a possibility.
I would say there's two ways to think about it if I was a small business owner and thinking about your products and services. I would think first, you're not creating a new product or service. You still have to have a problem you're solving for your consumer, right? So you still have to have a solution. Maybe blockchain and smart contracts can create a more frictionless experience or a more cost-effective experience for you to provide that solution to your consumer. Web3, blockchain, and smart contracts is not a product or service. It is a way to get your product or service to your consumer, right? And so maybe it's a better way. For one, we just described a beautiful way with memberships where your consumer actually owns their membership. But as a small business owner, you may say, well, great, that benefits the member, but what does that do for me? If you program in royalties on that membership and that person sells it, you can get royalties on the sale of that membership. But I think when you were talking about branding and things like that, I think for a small business, the ability to create evangelists through having these digital collectibles and easily accessible to your consumers is big. I think Web3 is great for challenger brands. I don't think it's great for these big enterprises because these big enterprises are going to create their own blockchain. Why would an enterprise want to have all of their data and all their consumer base available for a challenger brand? So like Starbucks, I think this is a good way to iterate it for a small business.
Sure.
Starbucks they launched this program Odyssey. It's not kicked off yet. It's coming, right? It's coming. We have this blockchain enabled loyalty rewards program. And everyone knows that Starbucks has a killer loyalty rewards program, right? I use it. You get free coffee, you get free not donuts, croissants, whatever you want, depending on how many points you get. They're going to put that on the blockchain, meaning, you can earn more loyalty points. You can buy loyalty points from me. Linda, if you're like, shoot, I want, to be this level status, I can post my loyalty points on their marketplace. You can buy them from me, and then you can reach some status so that you can attain whatever it is, the reward that they're offering. Maybe it's concert tickets. Maybe it's, and it's some cool Starbucks experience. I don't know, some exclusive roast or something, who knows, whatever it is that they deem would be valuable for their consumer. They're going to find a really cool way to have their customers earn it. And I think it's fun. It's going to be engaging. I think in my brain, I'm curious to see how they unveil it. We're getting bits and pieces. It's going to be purchasable, I believe, with a credit card. You can use crypto or credit, which I think is important. So it talks about taking the pressure off of the consumer from having to custody their own blockchain wallet, because that's not quite ready yet. I think it will be. It's coming. And I think now is the time to be learning and getting involved so you can jump on it when it's easier. But I think that they'll have their own blockchain, because if I started a small coffee shop in Orlando where I live, I would go on I would just look on the blockchain because it's all open source and public. And I'd say, who are Starbucks top customers? And I would just airdrop them free coffee for a month to my coffee shop. And that's a really interesting way to think about challenger brands. I think having a really big opportunity with Web3, small business having a really big opportunity, being able to look at that data and see what is activating consumers, what is incentivizing the consumers that they want to take, and being able to use that data to shape how you create your brand, how you reach out to your consumers. I think it'll be a really interesting evolution.
This brings up the true element of why I wanted to talk with you about this, because of the loyalty program. We talked about memberships, but also the loyalty. And one of the things that I had to get my head around was with these points that some of these, CVS or Walgreens or Starbucks, the points sometimes expire. So that doesn't do anybody any good. And what you're saying with how Starbucks, even though that is an enterprise level, right, they could potentially have challenges with competition, but still it is a way for people to understand the fundamentals of how they're going to bring their loyal customers to even a greater expanse, so to speak, because they're going to be able to, just your example of, well, even though it was the competition, a Starbucks could still airdrop if somebody is like crazy with coffee and they like the top purchaser for that week for whatever the reason is.
Yes.
Starbucks is going to have that data. That's the whole essence of building upon and solidifying the loyalty with your consumers.
Yeah. And I mean, human nature is competitive. If like we are all want to be the best, right? We want to be the best coffee drinker we want to be rated up here. We want to be gold standard, platinum, those sort of things do incentivize people. And I think that Starbucks is going to dig right into that. And I think it's going to be really brilliant because it's just going to be a brand new way to activate their consumer. And I think it's really smart. There's a lot of opportunity even for partnerships, like Starbucks does a lot with Target, right? You see Starbucks in Target stores. So being able to have Target go, okay, we're going to airdrop 20% off to Target today. This is like the day that we have terrible sales. We know this year stinks. So we're going to airdrop every, top tier Starbucks holder, platinum level Starbucks user, 20% off to Target today, just to try and motivate them to get out. Who knows if it's going to work? But I mean, these are the fun things I think that we're going to see these big brands doing. And I think small brands should be doing too. There's no reason why they shouldn't be playing with these tools and seeing what problems they have within their business and trying to solve them, with these tools. And I think even I was talking to someone about a gym owner. Say you switched your memberships to NFTs. So everyone has to start the gym with a little NFT with a chubby person on it. And then for every hour or every week whatever, you set the standard every 10 hours, then their NFTs are dynamic. They could change. So the metadata can change. So your NFT could start to shrink or get more chiseled or whatever that person's goal is. How fun to set that goal with your clients. Sit down, I want to be carved marble. I want to be super skinny. And then, your NFT, changes as you participate at the gym. And I think that's it's more engagement, right? It's really fun.
You mentioned another word, which is why I created this banner right on the spot, because you mentioned the word metadata, which again is one of those words in this space, but it's sort of like when websites first started. It's like, how do you make a website? Did you know how to make a website? Nobody knew how to make a website because they never existed before. And then all of a sudden you can have a page and you can have 2 pages and then you can have where you can edit it yourself. I remember, maybe you don't, but I remember where I couldn't edit it myself and I had to have the web designer edit it until WordPress came along. And then all of a sudden I had control of the dashboard and the back end of my website and I could go in and change it. And I think that's what you're talking. So the metadata is sort of like that. It's sort of like the thing that makes the image or the contract, whatever it is, it's what makes it possible, right?
Yep.
Okay. I know there are lots of different types of NFTs. You had mentioned music and art. Do you have a favorite project besides your own, or do you have different favorites because of the different types of NFT projects that you've invested in?
My favorite NFT project. Interesting. I don't know if I would say I have a favorite because I would say none of them, I think, have done a great job addressing like a broad market. But I will say this may not be my favorite, but I think it is probably going to be, or has been, one of the most effective that aligns with what my mission is. My BFF was started by Jamie Schmidt and Britt Morin. Jamie Schmidt's like a CPG expert. She sold a big brand to Unilever, had like a big exit, and started like a fund to invest in businesses with her husband. Anyway, and they put a bunch of celebrities together to entice women to be interested to join this like club that all of these celebrities were a part of. With at the beginning, the onset really only being come learn about Web3. And it was enough. I think they had like 8,000 women join their Zoom or something like that to open a wallet. I don't know how many actually opened a wallet. I'm sure the data's out there, but I just don't know it off the top of my head. And then what they have born from that community, basically like a broadscape loyalty rewards, kind of like your value pack, that you used to get in the mail, your value pack with all your coupons.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that, I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying smart to them. They've curated an audience that they are very similar, right? A very cohesive audience. And they now have these brands who want to target this audience, right? So they have these brands come in, offer discounts to, activate this audience to spend money.
Yes.
So I think it's probably so far the smartest.
Yeah. It's most popular too. Besides World of Women, which is its own,
but I don't think that's well executed though. So that's not a favorite. I mean, I'm talking about not from art perspective. So World of Women is just more like a social club at this point and more of like a flex, right? Like it's saying, I was here, I'm an OG, I spent a lot of money on it. It's more of like why you buy the Gucci belt, why you drive the fancy car. And like that's Bored Ape. Those I like them. I own them. Like they're not a favorite for me. I'm more about let's show me like use cases, how you can apply these technologies outside of like a social club. Don't get me wrong. I love a good social club. I compared when I first started learning about NFTs, I'm like, this is like Mary Kay or like Avon. This is literally Avon. And I think that's a beautiful thing like that. And, it really creates these communities, empowers them, helps them make money. It's like this beautiful thing.
Community.
So yeah, I think it's beautiful. And so I think so far they are using the technology the most effectively at this point, in my opinion.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. And if people wanted to find out more about you and CoinQueens and basically your mission of onboarding women to Web3, how can people find you?
Yeah, head to our website, coinqueens.io. You can get a link to our community platform there. We are on a new community platform called Geneva. It's really awesome. So our hive is there. We have all the Web3 information. It can get into some deep dives, but the basics are in there and we're all in there to answer questions and, network, mentor, help people figure out what they're doing. So that's where we are.
All the links will be in the description and the show notes. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time and your generosity with sharing all that you have accumulated. And this knowledge is so vast and so practical with how you explain it. And I think that really was my huge motivation of having you here today, because you do such an amazing job with explaining it where you can understand it. Because, you go into these Twitter spaces with some of the tech and the crypto,
the developers. They're good. They are good at what they do, but there's a reason like they're on the back end, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason there's a back-end developer, right? They are so good at what they do, but then their brains and the problems they're solving are different than what the problems we need to solve for the business owners. So
exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you in the hive.
I'll see you there. All right. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Bye-bye.